Hello everybody, here we are today doing my Week 18 CFL picks and getting on into all of that. So before we start with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or the CFL, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So I do apologize for not doing a Week 17 pick video, and it's just kind of, I've got something busy in my personal life that I'm trying to get kind of situated here, but it could be very exciting news for me personally, so I might be able to share that with you sometime next week. So I'm very excited by that, but I've been very kind of distracted by that in my own life. And going into work on last Friday, I said, I know I'm forgetting something, but I can't figure out what. The thing that I forgot to do was record my Week 17 video, so I do apologize. But anyway, this week we are getting back into the swing of things, talking about the game we all know and love. And this week in the CFL is going to be very big for playoff positioning, and that's why I'm excited to talk about these three games. And I'm going to try my very best to watch all three, and I'm just excited to talk about them. So let's get on into it. So the first game of the week is going to be Friday night as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers travel over to Hamilton to play the Tiger Cats. This one is a good one because you have Winnipeg that is 9-2 over the past 11 games, if I'm not mistaken. They are in a spot right now where I think if they get the win and Saskatchewan loses, they end up clinching the division. It's great for them, of course, too, looking at the fact that they are able to have such a big win last week where they played the Edmonton Elks and they had 55 points. Zach Claros had like over 400 yards, 6 passing touchdowns. Just all around the club is rolling at the perfect time of the year. Maybe if it happened just a little bit later, but if they can continue, who really cares? They travel over to play the Ticats, who have been kind of a tough team to beat for them as of late. And looking at this, Hamilton is 4-0 over the past 4 games. They aren't looking to be done just yet either. Their odds and path to the playoffs is going to be hard to get to, but they are in a great spot right now too, where they've got a couple of big wins over the past few weeks. And Bo Levi Mitchell is just kind of a walk to go for over 300 yards or more through the air. He leads the league in passing touchdowns right now, and I'm hoping that Bo can kind of play spoiler here to the Blue Bombers. We know what he did in Calgary. We know him and, Winnipeg and whatnot, so maybe Bo's got a little bit of magic here. This has the potential to be a much better game than people may have expected. And then you've got another Friday night affair as the Calgary Stampeders travel over to play the BC Lions. Calgary and BC, two teams that not too long ago, a couple of years ago, 2022 even, you might have had big hopes for and what they could do. The BC Lions are trash. As a Lions fan, I'm saying that, not in the whole extent, because I do think the potential is there. But for a team that went back-to-back years where they went 12-6, now sitting at 7-8, just a dumpster fire as of late, losing a ton of games over a 9-game stretch. It's not been fun. But you know that this team could go out there and be a good side. So I'm hoping that if BC goes up against Calgary, they might be able to do that. I think there's a couple reasons why BC might be able to go out there and win this game. Calgary is 0-6 on the road, the only winless team in the CFL on the road this year. They have the worst turnover differential in the league at -16. They are a team that does not do well against defending the run. They are a side that is kind of penalized relatively often. They have the fewest offensive points in the league. They have the second fewest total points, I believe. So an offense that's not able to go out there and score a lot, a team that's not able to produce a whole lot in general in terms of scoring, and that is kind of why you think, oh, maybe BC, but at the same time, too, the Lions are falling apart, ripping apart at the seams. It doesn't seem to matter who's there at quarterback. It doesn't seem to matter how big of a lead they have. They can just fall apart in the fourth quarter. That's A-OK, and that's why this game is kind of set up very interestingly, because you have Calgary that's coming off of a bye that is in a spot right now where it kind of looks like they're not going to make the playoffs for the first time since 2004, taking on a BC team that really could use a win, but at the same time, too, seems to have not found that ability to win when it matters most, and this is where things kind of get interesting. Because whoever loses this game is going to be in a terrible spot. For BC, it wouldn't be backbreaking. For Calgary, it absolutely would. And this is where you kind of have that look in the mirror moment for yourself as an organization, especially for a team like BC that let a win slip away last week against Hamilton and try to find a way to make it happen. But I think Calgary has really got more of that look in the mirror moment to say, what are we made of and how can we get the job done? Kind of late like we did last year where Calgary really turned it on to get into the postseason. I don't know though. Things are looking pretty rough. Maybe ends in a tie. And then the final game of the week is also a fun one. You have the Saskatchewan Roughriders traveling over to Edmonton to play the Elks. Saskatchewan lost, I think, a close one against Edmonton in Edmonton earlier this year, and the Riders are just a very odd team, as I talked about a while ago, how they looked like they were set to be like what they did in 2022 and 2023, got off the good start and then just fell apart. This year, it looks like they're going to prevent that. They'll be a game and a half better at worst compared to what we saw with those back-to-back 6-12 seasons. they've been able to rebound very nicely with a pair of wins to kind of revitalize the season and get you thinking maybe something can happen here again. Trevor Harris had a game not too long ago where he was 16 for 18. This team picked up a win. I believe it was on the road last week, right, against Ottawa, and that was good, even though Ottawa's kind of falling apart, but that's neither here nor there at this moment for this video. But the Riders now are playing an Edmonton side that has had a couple of bad losses, especially last week against Winnipeg. Maybe they can kind of continue that momentum, get to where you'd be, what, 8-7-1 at that point, and really set themselves up to where they probably will finish as the second seed out west. Didn't think that was going to be happening. I really thought BC was going to be it there for a while, then Winnipeg. Now Saskatchewan's coming out of their way from third to look like they'll probably go on to second and at least be able to say we can host the Lions or something like that in a playoff game. Now it's time to get the job done for Corey Mason aside. Don't take any stupid penalties though in this one. Try not to get in fights. Meanwhile, for Edmonton, it does seem like the magical run could be over a little bit, where you thought maybe, just maybe, they could go on a bit of a tear and get to the playoffs. It does seem kind of like Calgary, where if they lose, it's just a backbreaker. You know, there's no way to sugarcoat this and say that there's going to be a turnaround. I still think there's a lot of positives to take away from this season, and I think, again, too, the fact that they can get a lot of those points and be a team that can move the ball is very exciting, because, again, looking back at some of those teams we saw, like 2021, there were some dark years for this organization, and things aren't perfect by any means right now, as they still are trying to figure out how exactly to get back into the playoffs. But if they could get a win here, I absolutely think they can go out there and beat Saskatchewan right now. I don't think Saskatchewan's unbeatable by any means, and it is a home game for Edmonton. Hoping here, I think they're going with MBT. Maybe he can have a good closeout to the season. I don't exactly know. They're going to keep, trying to figure out exactly what works there for them. But for the Elks, certainly in a territory where they say, let's go out there and maybe run the table and see what happens. So there's only 3 games this week, but I do think we're set for a lot of action here. And I am hoping that my picks are right. So for this week, I'm going to be picking Winnipeg. Although, again, Hamilton being 4-0, getting wins over BC, Ottawa, and then somebody else in that time too, Toronto, I believe, as well. I would say maybe they could go out there and do it, but I'm going to stick with the Blue Bombers, considering how good of a run that they've had over the past 11 games. Then you've got the Lions against the Stamps. BC feels like it should be a win. If not, again, how dare you, playing a team that can't seem to figure it out on the road after just having a fourth quarter collapse. Again, doesn't seem to matter who's there in QB. Doesn't seem to matter exactly what's happening here. Could be some changes, again, after this season is said and done, depending on how things finish here. But this should be a win for the Lions. As for the final game of the week, I'm picking the Riders. I do think, again, they're going to have the spot where they should go out there and beat this Edmonton side. Edmonton's kind of been a tricky team to pick this year, though, so I'm leaving that one up in the air a little bit more. I certainly would see a world where Riders fans are, pulling out their hair and saying, we had a spot where we could have gone on to clinch the 2 seed out west, but if BC wins and then we lose, things just get a little bit more difficult for us, and the path to the playoffs is going to be harder. But, again, I think we're kind of looking at Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and BC being relatively safe out west. Out east, there are some things that, if you see Montreal, of course, they've already won the division. It's more about how things will play out with Ottawa and Toronto, is a 2 seed and whatnot. But anyway, what are your thoughts for this week in the CFL? Who are you picking in these games? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe and have a great night.